Hi, welcome to the presentation. This is actually a redo of a recent talk I gave as part of the Lotus project, which is funded through public health to support and educate helping professionals of Asian descent. During my original session, I only had a 30 minutes time slot, which did not allow me enough time to cover all the slides and ideas in depth. So today I'm just taking the time to walk through the full presentation more thoroughly. My original section was followed by another presenter who provided an overview of EMDR. So if you're new to EMDR or didn't attend that part of the training, I would recommend reviewing that section as a helpful introduction to this framework. So my presentation is to share my knowledge about EMDR, which is a trauma-focused therapy. My name is Daniel. I am a licensed clinical social worker. I'm also a consultant in EMDR. I've been supporting EMDR trained clinicians towards their certification process. I also see myself as a integrative therapist. I'm trained in IFS, sensory motor psychotherapy, which is a body-based approach, and psychedelics assisted therapy. Here's my website. Feel free to take a look and shoot me an email with questions you might have. I also listed my email in later slides. So here are some of the learning objectives for today. I'm hoping that by the end of this seminar, you'll be able to tell what is EMDR and what is not, that you'll be able to deepen your understanding of EMDR as a trauma-focused therapy, which is different than trauma-informed therapy. We are going to bring some neuroscience to better understand how transformative change occurs in neural level. And there are so many different trauma modalities out there. So we're going to spend some time talking about some of the common elements shared through these different approaches. And I want to emphasize that these 30 minutes or 40 minutes seminar by no means equip you with competence and confidence to support clients in their trauma recovery. So I'm hoping that through this presentation, you will cultivate some interest in getting your own trauma-focused training. So some of the commonly known treatment modalities include EMDR, of course, internal family system, which is probably one of the most sought after training out there right now. We also have sensory motor psychotherapy and somatic experiencing. Both of them are a body-based approach. AEDP, accelerated experiential dynamic psychotherapy, which I believe integrate somatic approach and attachment theory. ART, I don't know much about that, accelerated resolution therapy, but I've heard a lot of good things, feedback about it. Brain spotting, I believe is a branch from EMDR. So, EMDR has gained significant hype on social media recently. However, its population also led to widespread misunderstandings and myths about this treatment modality. Um, you might have heard that EMDR is a magic wand or a quick fix therapy. EMDR may have been branded as a brief therapy, but in real practice, EMDR does require careful preparation and pacing so that clients are able to remain grounded when accessing and processing those traumatic memories. We call that dual awareness. And so many people think that EMDR is only a technique. So you might hear clinicians saying, this client is not a good fit for EMDR, or they are not ready for EMDR. But EMDR is a comprehensive model, and EMDR views symptoms through a trauma lens. So EMDR is used to treat phobia, anxiety, panic, depression, etc. And EMDR involves more than phase 4, trauma processing or reprocessing. All the efforts before and after phase 4 are equally critical. Sometimes people think that EMDR is a hypnosis. I don't know much about hypnosis, But what I do know in EMDR is we encourage and we need clients to be fully awake and aware, which allow them to achieve the best outcomes from this treatment. Many people equate EMDR as eye movement, as if eye movements itself does all the trick. But we know healing doesn't come from eye movements themselves, but from a deep notice when connecting to corrective experiences that disconfirm the maladaptive beliefs that comes from the traumatic events. Some people may be curious if EMDR erase traumatic memories, if they would help you forget about what happened. EMDR doesn't erase memories. Instead, it helps clients relate to them in a less distressing and more manageable way. How to explain EMDR? It depends if I'm explaining it to clients or professionals. For clients, I want to let them know trauma isn't just in your head, it's also in your body. And that explains why sometimes you know you are safe, but your body may still react. And EMDR is a mind and body therapy, it's not just a thinking therapy. And in EMDR, we support your natural capacity to heal. And in session, I want to let clients know that your role is simply to follow the bilateral stimulation. This could be in the form of eye movement, butterfly hug, tapping on your knees, maybe holding pulsars in your hands, left and vibrating left and right, or wearing a headphone that rings left and right. While gently noticing any images, thoughts, emotions, sensations then come up as your traumatic memory is activated. So for folks who are, practice mindfulness, here the noticing is basically the essence of the mindfulness practice. How can we mindfully observe any information that comes up as the traumatic memory is coming up? And I also want to let clients know that you're always in control and we will only move at a pace that feels safe for you. For professionals, EMDR is a memory model. We work with the traumatic memory. And this EMDR is grounded in adaptive information processing, AIP. And AIP believes that trauma blocks the integration of distressing memories with adaptive memory network. I want to pause here because it's mouthful. So what it basically means here is that the unprocessed trauma can feel like an isolated island in a vast ocean, making it difficult to connect you to the other islands that host the rest of your life experiences. So as if these two islands or these islands do not communicate with each other. So for example, someone who went through a car accident might hold on to the belief that danger is everywhere and dismissing the hundreds of car rides before they were totally safe. Yeah, so as a result, aspects of traumatic events remain unmetabolized and processed. So in EMDR, we believe that symptoms such as flashbacks, intrusive thoughts are results of this unprocessed trauma. So we target these unprocessed memories, facilitating their reprocessing, their metabolizing, and integrating into a more adaptive network. So coming back to the analogy of islands, this will be maybe building the bridge or even illuminating, lighting up the bridge that might be already there so that clients can see a more general picture. So a more adaptive information or belief would be the world. Yes, the world can be dangerous, but I have choices and the capacity to keep myself safe and still enjoying life. Car accident did happen. I survived. And when I'm driving these days, there's choices regarding how I can drive that enhance my safety. Okay. Now let's bring some neuroscience to better understand the impact of trauma and the healing of trauma from a neural perspective, from the neuron level. So neuroscience, in short, is the study of our nervous system. And this includes our brain, the spinal cord, and all the fibers in the body that communicate to and from the brain. And the neuron is the basic unit of our nervous system. And there are 86 billion neurons or brain cells in the brain. I want to pause here. 86 billions. That's about 11 times of the world's population. And imagine if one person is talking to one another, what a sheer amount of combination there could be. And this is true in our nervous system, that neuron communicates with one another through electrical and chemical signals. And together they form a intricate and complex pathways, also known as neural connection, neural networks. In EMDR, we refer to that as memory network. And externally, that's how each individual experiences as perception, thoughts, feelings, sensations, impulses, actions, and memories. As you're listening to this presentation, your brain is actually, the neurons in your brains are actually communicating. If this is the first time you ever heard of this theory, the neural connection may be too weak or fragile to last, and it may eventually fade away. However, if you have already have some basic knowledge about this theory, the neural connection, the neural network may be strengthened. Yeah. And you may be wondering why certain memories are stronger than the others, and how is this connecting to what we're talking, the theme of today's presentation? That's because traumatic experience form a stronger neural network. Why? That's because stronger emotional experiences, such as traumatic events, also including positive experience such as wedding, graduation, form stronger neural networks due to the release of chemical. And in the situation of traumatic events, that would be cortisol and norepinephrine. And these strengthened neural networks are crucial because it ensures easy activation for survival purposes. So for example, if someone was bitten by a snake during a hike, it may sense this person's nervous system is quick to respond to any coiled objects because the brain, the nervous system's number one priority is to maximize safety. And I didn't write it here, but repetition also strengthens this neural network. So think of how habits are formed and the saying that practice makes perfect. In neuroscience, we also hear that what fires together, wires together. This really explains why complex trauma can take longer to heal, because the brain has practiced this trauma-driven response so many times that the networks are deeply wired. So in therapy, we're literally working with the brain to gently unwire those patterns and create a new, healthier connection. And for anyone who is in the mental health field, we know how debilitating traumatic memories is, and how survivors can be hijacked by those memories. And we have now learned that trauma disrupts the brain's neural connection, the natural connection to adaptive information, like what we shared in last slide. Living traumatic memories as an isolated islands that do not connect to other life experiences. And why? That's because, during traumatic events, parts of our brains naturally going offline. And this include the hippocampus and prefrontal cortex. And these two powerful brain parts are responsible for meaning making and contextualize the events. Without them, past feels like present. Now let's watch this short video clip to better understand how experiences promotes communication between neurons and how neuron communication form neural connection. 1 second.
Neurons communicate with each other, relaying messages throughout your body and powering all of your thoughts and actions. Neurons talk to each other using both electrical and chemical signals. Messages start as electrical signals traveling rapidly down a neuron. These signals are called action potentials. When they reach the gap between two neurons, the messages need some help to get across. The information is transformed from an action potential into a chemical message, which crosses the gap called a synapse. The release of those chemical messengers can trigger an action potential in the neuron on the other side of the synapse, conveying the message onward. Or it can quiet the message. This happens over and over and over. And with repeated activity, the synapse gets stronger, so the next message is more likely to get through. That way, neurons learn to pass on important messages and ignore the rest. This is how our brains learn and adapt to an ever-changing world.
Now, let's bring a case example to better understand what we have been talking about. So imagine this is a client who grew up in poverty with parents who were always busy at work. In this family, emotional attunement was rare, and the client was left with a babysitter who was emotionally abusive. When the client was older, they were tasked with caring for their younger siblings and translating for their parents. And this is very common in immigration families. And they received little validation from their parents, who were stressed from work. Instead, the client's mother often vented to her, suspecting that the father was having an affair. And as the client grew older, their parents would brag about their good school performance to relatives, but rarely offer direct praise. When the client became older and became an adult and moved out, their parents only reached out when they needed help. So I've been working with this client for some time, and through some supports, she identified this deeply ingrained belief that I'm worthless unless I contribute. And it made sense, right? How all this experience created and reinforced this belief. Now let's take a look at memory consolidation developed and researched by Bruce Ecker, who also has developed his own treatment modality called coherence therapy. I really appreciate this theory because it explains how change happens inside of us in our nervous system, and why different treatment modalities may achieve similar, if not the same, treatment outcome. And maybe it is true that there's no single approach that is superior to the other. Through this theory, we learned that, researchers used to believe that memories or neural connections, once formed, once consolidated, were permanent. There's nothing we can do about it. But we have now learned all these memories in the form of neural connection, neural network, once activated, once recalled, will become temporarily malleable with a 5-hour window, during which this memory or neural connection can be altered, changed, adapted before restabilizing into a long-term memory. And this is good news because that means change is always possible. And many of us may have heard of neuroplasticity. This theory is very much in line with neuroplasticity, which believes that our brain is constantly changing thanks to its adaptability. So, coming back to that magical window, we have learned that the synapses, the space between two neurons, actually loosen up its connection in order to form new connections during these 5 hours. But how did that happen? Bruce Ecker simplified his healing steps into 3 different categories. The first one is to activate these target memories. And this may sound easier than what it is in real practice, because that requires the therapist, in collaboration with our clients, to form a clear case conceptualization that explains how past experience continue to impact the present. So, you rarely have clients coming into a therapy telling you that I have this deeply ingrained belief that I'm worthless because of being parentified. because lack of attunement and validations. But rather, many clients come in because of depression, anxiety, insomnia, low self-esteem, difficulty regulating their emotions, or building a meaningful relationship. Right? So it does take some time to really understand what do we want to target. And once we identify, we bring that into our awareness. And that's the focus of EMDR phase 3. We ask clients the representing image of that event. What's the negative belief that come along? How their body still remembers this experience and what emotion that comes up. That's some of the activation step of phase 3. It should be noted that this is not just recalling facts and details, because facts and details are only part of this neural connection. And then the second step is to introduce these confirming experiences. Here I borrow a quote from Thomas Zimmerman, who has made great contribution to the EMDR community in recent years. And he summarizes that humans heal when we activate a difficult experience and immediately have an experience that confirms expectation in the bad memory. I'm going to share a personal example later, hopefully to better unpack, what he means here. In EMDR, we believe that clients have this natural capacity to connect into the adaptive information, the other island. But we also know that how and how long clients get there truly varies. This is especially true for clients with complex trauma. A thorough preparation is usually required in order to strengthen the access to the adaptive resources. Then here comes to the step 3, which is to stabilize, to reinforce this newly formed neural network through actions and repetition, which is another essential piece of neural connection. We can think of the old belief, the old memory as a beaten path that had been worked 1,000 times. And the new belief, this newly created felt experience is like a new path in a field that is still barely visible. Therefore, it's so important to support clients to take healthy actions and taking healthy risks to support stronger neural wiring during their post-traumatic growth. Now, let me bring in a personal example to hopefully help you better understand how this theory is playing in action. For many years, I carried this belief that there was something wrong with me for being gay. And this may be impacted by culture and family. And this belief lived deep in my implicit memory and influenced how I anticipated social situation, often expecting judgment and rejection. I recently went to a barbecue where I was the only gay man. And you can imagine immersing myself in a situation like this automatically activated my neural pathway and my protective mode. And just knowing that this is not a voluntary and conscious process, because my nervous system naturally and automatically defaulted me into this protection mode. Luckily, at that gathering, this confirming experience occurred, and people were genuinely and warmly curious about my relationship. So that became an aha moment, a felt sense of difference, a corrective experience that directly contradicted the prediction of what my brain had been making for years. So here it comes to that step 2. But is that it? Am I healed from one experience? No, I believe it required me to take ongoing healthy risks to engage life in a more authentic way in order to solidify this new belief that I am okay the way I am. Now let's come to the next slide where we can examine some of the common elements that I've observed shared across different treatment modalities. The first one is the ability to name. And we know that when trauma happens early in life, children often don't have a caregiver who can mirror and help them make sense of their inner experience. This means they miss crucial opportunities to learn how to identify or differentiate thought, feeling, and sensation. So in therapy, we're helping clients to build a language around their internal experience being able to name their feeling, their sensation, and their thought process. And indeed, this is a foundational step towards integration. And the second one is the ability to be with. And trauma often creates a split between self and the body. And it makes sense why clients learn to disconnect or only relying on these apparently normal parts. So this is the part of them knows how to function, how to fit in, how to look normal to the outside world. By doing so, they learned how to push away any vulnerable and painful experiences. So in treatment, we support clients to stay present with their internal experiences and learn to notice any sensations, emotions, and memories without immediately shutting down or fleeing. And this mindful awareness is actually at the core of most trauma modalities, and we call it dual awareness. The third one is the ability to access this corrective experience that we have been focusing in the previous slide. And we know trauma blocks access to adaptive information and internal experiences. And over time, chronic survival states, fight, flight, freeze, and appears limit this individual's capacity and flexibility. And I do believe that healing requires imagination. Paradoxically, trauma also disrupts imagination. So in treatment, we are supporting clients to slowly reclaim the imagination so that we can help them to create new possibility. So in short, in therapy, in trauma treatment, we support clients to name the experience, stay present with it, and accessing new reparative experiences. And these three capacities are interdependent. Naming helps regulate, and regulation allows presence, and presence opens the door to corrective experience that drive transformation. Some of you may have heard phase-oriented treatment, and this is the guiding principle for most trauma modality. So the phase one is to ensure safety and stabilization. This is a time we want to make sure that we have a supporting and trusting relationship so the client is willing and feeling comfortable to take healthy risk. We want to support clients to stabilize their symptoms, such as flashback, dissociation, panic, self-harm. We want to enhance their confidence in regulate their emotions and coping skill so that they're able to stay a bit longer with these uncomfortable sensations and thought and emotions. We also want to address any immediate life stressors. This is maybe the time we want to get extra support from case management. And in EMDR, phase two is all about developing resources, supporting clients how to ground themselves, learning how to contain experiences and thoughts that are too much for now. We might assessing imagination for safe place, calm place, and nurturing figure. Breath work is another tools that we can support clients to learn how to regulate their experiences. And once clients are in a space where they can starting to feel, they can endure some discomfort from activating the traumatic experiences. That's when we move to the phase two. Depending on what treatment modalities you are comfortable with or you're trained with, we starting to support clients to gradually expose to traumatic memories and learning how to making new meanings after this trauma. And grief is a big part of trauma work. We also want to support clients to recognize trauma triggers and how these triggers is linked to past events. Eventually, we are hoping that clients can learn how to reduce the emotional charge from the traumatic memories. Many of you may have heard of phase-oriented treatment. It's actually the guiding principle for many trauma modalities. And the first one is to ensure safety and stabilization. This is when we want to examine out the therapeutic relationship. Does this client feel trustful enough to take any risk, to feel any emotions in this therapeutic relationship? We want to support them to stabilize symptoms, including flashbacks, dissociation, panic, and self-harm. Enhance emotional regulation and learning how to cope with strong emotions, intrusive thought. We want to address any immediate life stressors. This is maybe the time we might have to gain extra support in case management. And in EMDR, phase two is all about developing and building resources. So learning how to ground, contain intrusive thought, big emotions, how to use our imagination to access safe, calm place, using breath work to stay with difficult emotions. So phase one, the key is to support clients to feel without resorting to protection. And once clients are able to remain dual awareness, right, the ability to feel and sense and be with difficult experiences, that's when we move forward to phase two. Depending on what treatment modality we're comfortable with, we support clients to gradually expose to traumatic memories, and through which we help them to make meanings of trauma. And I want to say that grief is a big part of this trauma work. And client hopefully would learn to identify trauma triggers and how these triggers is linked to past events, and eventually reduce emotional charge from the traumatic memories. And here comes to phase three after trauma-focused work, how we can continue to integrate new belief, new experience, and making new meaning out of it. So this may include connecting to the community, relationship, work, and access creativity, how we can explore identity beyond what we knew who we are from those traumatic narrative, and foster empowerment, agency, and meaning that we were born with, and address any existential and spiritual questions that we might have been carrying because of what we experienced. And I believe that, phase three is a lifelong journey. This is when how we can continue enhance long-term growth and build our resilience. Now let's turn to a case study to see how EMDR works in practice. And as you are listening to me going through this case, maybe think in your mind how memory reconsolidation takes place. So T is me as a therapist, and C is the client. Hi, what's present with you today? Anything new since we last talked? Honestly, it's been pretty stressful. I've been tuning out more. With my dad in chemotherapy, my parents have been calling a lot, asking for help with doctor's appointment and all kinds of little things. Historically, they only call me when they need something, so part of me wants a break. But I also feel guilty because I know this is when they need me the most. I'm also frustrated they don't reach out to my brother as much, and I can't help but feel panicking whenever the phone rings. It sounds like different parts of you are pulling in different directions about how to respond. And it makes sense that another part would want to tune out, especially when there isn't a clear solution. Yeah, it's frustrating. I do want to help, but it just feels overwhelming. And I say, it seems like a natural segue from what we explored last time. Your long-held belief, I don't have any value unless I contribute. That belief often drives the urge to fix, huh? And these parts may be showing up strongly right now in your situation with your parents. How about we pay attention to those parts first? And from there, we can take a look at how you want to approach your dad's reaching out. I'm open to that, but still whispery distressed. I wonder what might be the deep core belief underneath I don't have value unless I contribute. Client, it was in reflection, and with my support, she said, I think I'm worthless. Thank you for staying with that. As we explore the belief system, is there a memory that comes up, one that connects performance and contribution to your sense of value? Yeah, I remember when I was 8 and my parents were going through financial difficulties. I took all the money I had saved in my piggy bank, about $200, and gave it to them. At that time, I felt proud, but looking back, it feels so sad. That's a powerful memory. $200 is an enormous amount for a child. As you connect with that sadness, where do you notice it in your body? Sorry. I feel tension in my chest and in my lower back. If you were to measure how disturbing this memory feels right now on a scale from 0 to 10, with 0 being is in the past and 10 being it feels like it's happening now, where would you put it? About an 8. Before we start, let's just check in with that part of you that tunes out. Does it feel okay to continue with processing today? Yeah, yeah, I think I'm ready. Okay, hold the image of yourself at 8, giving your savings to your parents, noticing the younger part of you who carried the belief that I'm worthless unless I contribute or I fix problems for others. Stay with the sadness and with the tension in your chest and lower back. Now just follow the eye movements. So here's this slide is my attempt to support clients to activate the target memories. And after the first set, I use each set is usually about 20 seconds. And after the first set, clients say that I feel vibration through my body. It feels like anger. Notice it and just let it move through. So here, the anger begins in her chest, its breast, in her arms. Clients reflects that she has rarely allowed herself to feel anger towards her parents because the guilt tied to their struggle. Go with that. And after the second set, clients reported, now I feel sadness. It's heavy. Can you stay with the younger part who carries sadness and let it feel your presence? Here, I use the parse language to support client to create distance so that she is able to be with her, the sadness. And after the third set, clients say that I remember the babysitter, the sexual charmer. I feel sad that my parents left me with her. That sadness makes sense, and the association with that charmer is natural. See if you can offer that younger part safety now. Maybe imagine her being protected in a safe place. So clients visualize animals in the zoo and feels increasing calmer as the image strengthen. Her imagination is her being protected in the zoo by the animals. And in trauma treatment, the ability to contain distress and remain within a window of tolerance is essential for effective processing. Um, and I check with her, and it's also because of the time. I don't think we have the capacity to continue processing the traumatic memory, the sexual memory that maybe even carrying stronger charge. And after the fourth set, clients report I feel sleepy. Now let's check it. Is this feel like the tuning out part of you that you used to protect yourself? And she reported, no, it feels different. I still sense my body. She realized that the sleepiness is a release rather than a shutdown, which is good news. She was able to notice her body soften as if letting go of holding tension for years. And after the fifth set, she reported the disturbance is lower, maybe a 4. And notice what needed to happen back then but did not, so your body can fully know this memory is in the past. Here I borrowed some ideas from somatic therapy, because in somatic therapy it's believed that trauma is often understood as thwarted survival instincts, meaning that the defense and protective action didn't get to complete and they remained stored in the body. So by recognizing what was missing, sometimes the body begins to release the stored survival energy. And say, go with that. Clients reported, I see how I've been playing small in relationships and even at work. Like at work, I normally stay quiet and just do my own things. Yeah, the past does find a way to live in the present, huh? Go with that. Links emerge between childhood survival strategies like in this situation, clients learn to stay visible over contributing and the adult patterns of self-minimization. So insight arise that these strategies once served protection but are now outdated, though they continue to influence the present behaviors. I feel calmer. Good. The old belief tells you that you're worthless. I'm curious, what would be a preferred belief moving forward that could replace the outdated belief? Client reported, I'm not sure. That's okay. Give yourself a little time. I can also suggest a few options and you can see which one fits and then adjust it to make it truly your own. I'm worth it regardless of what I do or can't do. Terrific. Now, as you hold that belief, go through your memories and tell me a time in recent years when you feel valuable simply for being you. After a pause, client said that yes, at the treatment center, the kitchen staff remember everybody's food preference, and I felt careful for just being me. Other people felt the same way. Okay, now hold a sense of being valued together with the old belief from the piggy bank memory and go with that. And as clients host this contrasting experience side by side, her stress level drops sharply to 1. And the shift comes not just from a cognitive reasoning, but from a full body mind knowing. And this created a powerful disconfirming experience that supports her transformative healing. So here, this slide is what we shared earlier, the step 2, to introduce disconfirming experiences. Notice step 1 in the body and stay curious what prevents the impacts of old memories from going down to 0. Okay, and go with that. I'm feeling relieved, and clients appeared calm, present, and embodied with a relaxed posture. And I said, great, stay with that feeling of relief. And at times, ideally want to support clients to reduce their stress level to 0. But also, we also want to acknowledge sometimes, there is not a feasible option given the complexity of the history and where we are in the treatment stage. And then we move to phase 5 and 7 in EMDR, which is installation, body scan, and we also use some future template. And I said that now bring in the new belief. I'm valuable regardless of what I do. How true does that sound to you right now? I feel it feels pretty true, maybe like a 6 or 6.5 out of 7. Great. Hold that belief together with the memory of giving your saving as a child. Now follow the eye movement. And clients reported, my chest feels calm, or more open, I feel calmer. And installing the new belief alongside of the old memory helps disrupt the condition association in the brain, by which to create new neural pathway that give the traumatic memory a different felt sense. And how true does that statement feel right now? And she said that it feels pretty true, really close to 7. Do you think that's a good place to pause? Absolutely. Okay, let's do a body scan. As you think about that memory, notice your whole body from head to toe. Do you sense any tension or discomfort? So this is phase 6 body scan in EMDR. And client responded, there's just a slight tingling in my fingers, but I feel more like release than distress. Great. Now let your body follow the impulses and notice what happens. It's fading. I feel lighter. Okay, so we kind of complete that reprocessing, and I find that this is maybe a good timing to introduce a future template so that this new belief can kind of consolidate it and prepare her for future experiences. So the first future template is work setting, and I said that now imagine holding a new belief: I'm valuable regardless of what I do, and walking into your office, noticing what you'll be doing differently. And I started a BLS. I picture myself greeting colleagues and even starting conversation instead of keeping quiet. Okay, stay with that image of confidently engaging with others while holding a new belief and follow the eye movement. That feels interesting. And she was smiling. And then we do the parents call. Okay, great. Now let's just imagine another situation. Picture your phone ringing, your parents calling, maybe with guilt-tripping languages. Hold the new belief I'm valuable regardless what I do. And go with it. What do you notice? And I said, she said that I feel steady. I can listen without panic. I don't feel I have to jump in right away to fix things. Excellent. Stay with that sense of steadiness and groundedness and follow the eye movement. And she reported, I feel confident. It doesn't shame me as much as it used to. Great. So this is the closure. Wonderful work today. We will close here. And taking healthy risks is an integral part of personal growth. It helps to strengthen the newly formed neural networks in your brain and the body. I am curious how this new sense of confidence and value will continue to unfold in your life. But please remember to be gentle with yourself as you notice any changes. Um, Client reported their appreciation and that they feel hopeful and more confident. So in summary, when trauma happens, neurons in the brain and our body form a pathway that carry the same feeling and belief as the event was still happening. And EMDR, we help to reactivate these pathways and support clients to connecting healthier information and rewires the neural connections so that they can live with the new beliefs, deepen connections, and healthier relationship.